We're going to start streaming now. Here we go. Why can't I hear it? That's why.
Tony Caravan.
You've been subjected to a highly sophisticated form of propaganda.
It's just what you need, and not what you don't. Quality, quantity, and variety.
Rock Flux.
And here we are.
Good morning.
For another day.
Okay.
Of insanity. Insanity beyond belief. You come here because of that title card? Pretty freaky, isn't it? It's pretty freaky. Okay. Beyond belief. Shocking beyond belief. Why are they doing this to us? Is the question. We'll get back to that in just a second. The title of this show, by the way, this is July 28th in the calendar year 2021. We're being lied to and tormented. And yes, it's just beyond belief what's going on now. Open up an email today and someone sent me a thing, said that more than half the people in the country have already got the old thing, you know, and the other half already had the thing and are immune, which basically puts them in even a better position. When you tally up the numbers, it comes up to the total population of the country. Something just doesn't add up. No. Visit Tattoo, T-A-T-U's website or YouTube channel. Watch his stuff. He's got some stuff. Also, just to clear something up from the other day, I like to deal with this stuff. Causing the thing about it is, this is just something someone had made a comment, and I wanted to clear this up. Why does the smoke change the color of the sun? And the sun's red tinge is a result of dense particles in the atmosphere. And the ash reflects blue light, but also yellow, orange, and red light as it passes through as more ash gathers in the sky. But you're being misled about the Carolinas. Sunrise, that sun is so far away from northwestern U.S. that it has nothing to do with this whatsoever. It has to do. There's also the color of the sun, the clouds, the sky there's all kinds of factors leading to it. There's not just one single factor. But smoke can lead to it, but it's usually you have to be within the areas where you're actually getting the ash, there. So if you have forest fires in the Carolinas, yeah, big ones, huge ones with a lot of ash. But it's clear when you're looking at that ocean. Remember, that sun is a sunrise over the horizon coming from the Atlantic Ocean, the clean, clear Atlantic Ocean. All right? Okay? So, there you can see the sun's reflection on the water there. And so it's not, you have visibility. Think of it in terms of that. Usually in the cases of the bizarre sunrises, sunsets, and things like that, the space between, even if it's hundreds of miles, is usually taken up with is clouding. You don't have that kind of in infinite, almost infinite visibility as far as the human eye is concerned. Just wanted to clear that up. It was a comment I received. So here we are, I'm trying really hard. There we go. Third time's a charm,
Funky.
It's like I got a delayed reaction with my sound effects today.
This is a nightmare. Must be a nightmare.
This is insane. This is insane. This is insane. This is insane. This is insane.
You got to get up.
Really funny. Really funny.
And you got to laugh in the morning, man. You got to laugh, I mean, these are serious topics we're talking about. It's the end of the frickin' world. And on top of that, we're being lied to by an organized crime syndicate is taking over Western civilization and, has always run what we call the third world. Not too many people ever talk about the second world, or the fourth world. But, as if we're the first world. But, yeah, despite all of that, insanity. And, and it is. I mean, there's just no second way of looking at it.
This is insane. This is insane. This is insane.
Yeah, it's frickin' insane, man. And it's
This is a nightmare. Must be a nightmare.
Well, not must, it is, and you're not a doll in a Salvation Army collection bin. You're a human being, as opposed to a human avocado. You get that one? I don't know. I had a stomach ache throughout the night. I don't know. I think I got something going on. I don't know what it is. I guess I shouldn't talk about it that much, but
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
I mean, it's my show, and so I guess the one or two fans that I do have might be interested in knowing whether this guy's going to be alive, in a couple of weeks or not. I look healthy. Sometimes I feel real healthy. So I'm not really certain what's going on, But I know it's a horror show. I mean, it really is. It's a horror show, what's going on out there. I mean, I keep bringing this thing up, but it's just the way it is. I mean, between the image on the left and the image on the right, I mean, this is reality. Why are they doing this to us? It's that age-old question, from a horror movie, Why are they doing this to us? I mean, it is shocking beyond belief, I guess if I could... funky.
Funky.
Hey, buddy, how's it going? Your old
What?
pal Ovaltine.
Ovaltine, man. It's my old pal Ovaltine. Forgot about that. Well, I didn't have Ovaltine today. I'm drinking poison. I took some magnesium glycinate. Look at the whole world. We got an earthquake here. And he shook like a bowl, and his belly shook like a bowl full of jelly. Look at those beautiful teeth. It wasn't so long ago that we were doing that tooth thing. I still have it. I could bring it up, but it's not actively in my portfolio of images that can be brought up right away. Anyway, if you haven't seen yesterday's show, I highly recommend that you watch it, because it pretty much laid out the end of the world scenario. And I've had previous shows where I've gotten more in depth into this whole thing, from a scientific level, as opposed to just things in general. And I was also talking about UFOs, which ties into this, some of this 50s image on the title card with that, beautiful costume alien with the big eyes, But, all of that aside, for a second, it's like, what the hell's going on, man? Like, what's really going on? As I said in my opening statement, with those, the numbers, there's like 330 million people in the U.S. And it's like, okay, that's like, why are they messing with people? And why does everything keep changing every several weeks or months, from what you hear? And why are people like just taking this? I mean, there's a couple of ways of looking at this. Like, one, there's more people like me out there than you realize who have basically turned off the news. So who have basically cut the cord, so to speak. Legendary white handkerchief for those who are unaware. And so they don't listen to all these things, so they're simply not aware. Right? I don't know what the viewership of the White House press conference is. I don't want to get political, because this isn't a political show. You know that. This is a show about life, existence, and our future. Philosophy and ideas, and stuff I've covered in my beat poetry and books and essays, and a couple of hundred of these 2-hour shows live every day, 7 days a week. Imagine it. I'm here 7 days a week. Of course, it's 5:53 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And as I always say, I'm in the mid-Atlantic states. I'm east of the Ohio Valley and about an hour away from one of the entrances to the Northern Appalachian Trail, if you want to get an idea geographically where I'm located. There are some dumbcoffs out there who think, oh, I know what city he's in. I know where he's at. And it's like, yeah, I was there a long time ago. I'm not there anymore. Okay. Think I'd be foolish enough to stay in one place, let alone a city at this juncture? A word I use often, Okay, so enough about that. If you don't know what I am, I have
resigned. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered.
So get that through your thick skull, nincompoops. Right now, it says I have an excellent connection, but the thing was spinning up top on the YouTube, like when you view the monitor. I just wheezed into the microphone, and my stream settings, analytics, etc. say that concurrent viewers right now are 0. 0. Yesterday's show, 0 views. There apparently was one playback, so to speak, and it says average watch time 11 seconds. So not only why are they doing this to us, why are they doing this to me? You know, what are they so afraid of about my show? Right? Think about that. Notice how my head fades away almost. There are many things I can do that other people don't do. But, yeah. So let's take the whole show today and explore these questions. And they are, why are they doing this to us? And basically, why are, as I said in the opening thing, we're being lied to and literally tormented. Why are they tormenting and lying to us? This is the question. It's different than some of my other shows. I'd like to talk about happiness and peace and love and the beauty of nature and all that stuff. But I mean, we have that, and those of us, we can experience that. And we'll get into that from time to time. Not today, though. The way this thing works, there's no way I could take a drink, just so you understand. Because it does I was watching a playback yesterday. It does kind of look kind of funky. As our buddy says.
Funky.
When I take a drink out of my mug, because it's like I'm hiding behind this thing or something. But I'm not. It's the microphone. The frickin' microphone. See, there's no way I could drink here. There's a bar. You see this bar? You see my finger moving right here? All right? There's bar that goes to the microphone. So there's no room here, literally. See? There's no room here for a glass. So I have to drink from this side, and then because I have to do that, here's the microphone. Well, I obviously can't drink here, so I have to drink here. So if you're interested in watching me drink, you see how I have to even move over to the side to get away from the microphone, because the microphone is close to my mouth, to take a drink. A drink of caffeine. Now behind me, you have an old radio, old AM radio. This is a 1950s horror movie set. My book Codex, there's an old transistor radio. There's an old phone from the 50s and the 60s. Of course, the morning show mugs still exist. Like I said, we are having new ones that have the Rock Flux logo on them. And they're already available if you want one. So, you can get, a hoodie, a t-shirt, stickers with the new logo on it. Or you can get the mug. And that's really a nice looking mug. So you will see me drinking out of that. And that's a ceramic version. So that's it's not going to replace the old mug. It's still the morning show. Though I think this is the first time I didn't say the morning show on the title card. Like ever. Like the first time ever. So that's interesting. It's actually was just a mistake on my part. I could have fit it next to that alien's head. Small. But let's push this rockflux.com because this rock we live on is in a state of flux right now. And not only a physical state of flux, from a magnetic field and our solar, problems, right? The upcoming near extinction event. The 12,000 year cycle we talked about yesterday, and we'll talk about again many, many times. But it's also in a state of flux with this organized crime syndicate that is somehow lying and tormenting 8 billion people on the planet. And it's like, why are they doing this to us? It just doesn't make sense. You're at a first glance, right?
Why are you telling us this?
Well, the question, why am I telling you this stuff, isn't really the question.
All your life you will remember this night.
I consider it still the night. Well, it's 6:01 a.m., so I guess sunrise has occurred on July 28th. So it's no longer night,
You have actually opened the door to another dimension.
Your papers, please.
So they're proceeding with that. And if you didn't hear that,
your papers, please.
That seems to be proceeding in many, many parts around the world. All right. There have been mass protests and stuff about that. Nobody's even talking about South Africa anymore. And that wasn't even about that. That was like purely local politics. But, in various other, France, there's been some, they've been out in the streets, protesting, from the days of the Yellow Jackets to the present. But they're protesting, the
your papers, please.
It's funny too, because it's like right out of a Bogart movie, because that same type of thing,
Go ahead and shoot. You'll be doing me a favor.
Now, when you think of France and Casablanca, right? But, they're doing this all over the place and implementing these policies. And they're trying to implement those policies in the U.S. as well. And what's crazy about the whole thing is that it doesn't make sense. It's contradiction to what we've been told by the same people literally 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago, a year ago, right? Dave Rubin said it best yesterday, just as a reminder to people, because I even, there's so much stuff goes on, you forget. He goes, he brought that big reminder up. Remember, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Check out Rubin on locals.com. Dave Rubin, locals.com. Check out his, and he's on Blaze TV, and he's also has a YouTube. He's on YouTube. I mean, he really calls it. He calls it out, and he's got he's unlike me. I'm just one guy here. Self-produced show. It's a horror movie, but in fact, I have a thing I did. I have to pull this stupid stuff up. Let's see if I can find this thing. You assume that people are, let's just call this horror movie. Make source visible. Yeah, I want it to be visible. Restart playback when it becomes that. So no. Show nothing when playback ends. Use hardware decoding when available. I don't need any of that. Okay, now let me do a check. Horror. Because I know I saw the thing when I was looking for something else this morning. Because I wanted to put this show as a horror. You can't see what I'm doing now. What I'm doing is I'm just looking through a search. Apple computer, I say this every time, but you can never say it enough, has the worst, absolute worst search, internal search, of any that I've ever seen. And, at one time, many, many years ago, it was like, let's see if that brings it up. No matches. No matches. I know I have it. And I'm wasting your time and wasting my time because I watch these shows back too. So I'm in the same boat as you are. And this is clearly looking for any kind of movie file. And I know I have it in movie format. MP4. I said the word horror. It's bringing things like Game Over up, Golden Bough, Netflix genres. In other words, anything that contains the word horror, it brings up, except the thing I want, which I did find. Okay. So I'm going to put this here in the front. It's like a horror movie. You want to watch that again? It's like a horror movie. Well, it's like a horror movie. That's my old office. I don't know if you heard the audio on that. I did, and I can't. So we'll see in the playback if it's there. Gulping away. I'm doing some Faygo this morning. And of course, I just spilled soda on my keyboard. Right. And I don't have a napkin. I gotta try to salvage this. Before I short out everything. Ooh.
The Weather Watch forecast.
And currently outside the studio, it's 64 degrees, and today's high is going to be 82. It's going to be sunny, completely sunny. If I get any more suntan, man, I already am a person of color. But as of today, if I go out there for an hour or two, I am definitely going to be a person of color. Thinking of taking a walk to the supermarket today. I don't necessarily have anything on my list, and I'm pretty much flat broke. But there's one or two things I might need. I think I need. Tonight's going to be 66 degrees. And then we head into a little preview for the weekend. It's looking like it's going to get into the high 70s, high to mid to high 70s, and the overnight lows will eventually get down into the 50s. So that's your
The Weather Watch forecast.
And that's good for most people here in the mid-Atlantic states, east of the Ohio Valley and an hour from the entrance to the northern Appalachian Trail. For those of you who do that, that place is scary, I think. So, why are they doing this to us? I was talking about locals.com and Dave Rubin. I have a site on locals too, TonyCaravanLive.locals.com. And I'm also on Podcast Index and Mastodon, if you don't know what that is. And I'm not sure if I've listed that. You have to go to rockflux.com or TonyCaravanLive.com, which is exactly the same website. It's actually a web page. I haven't turned it into a website yet. I will turn it into a website, and I will actually have links to things we talk about and other essays I've written and things from my books on there that will further detail and give you a more in-depth knowledge into the topics that we discuss on the show. Just haven't gotten around to it. It's summertime. I'm very busy. My garden is growing like crazy. I'm up to 3 zucchinis so far this year. And I've got at least a dozen tomatoes in the house. And they are the sweetest tomatoes you can imagine flavor-wise. My chair's falling down as usual. And not only that, as I resituate myself, but, I've got banana peppers, jalapeno peppers, and all sorts of things. Everything's growing. Everything's happening, I've got potatoes. I already pulled some out, but plenty more coming in, and carrots and all that stuff. And there's still dozens and dozens of tomatoes on the plants out there, so it should be a good year. And these are like these best boy beefsteak type of tomatoes. They're big and they're tasty, and it's like I say, they're sweet. And then I've got a couple of plants of Roma tomatoes that are just starting to happen. I mean, there's tomatoes on them, but they haven't hit maturity yet. So I've been busy with the garden. I've been busy with the freaky neighbor, those who follow this show, putting security measures up, motion detectors, extra cameras, alarms, and all that kind of stuff, which are also good to have in this climate. And I don't mean the weather. So yeah, the more you know what's going on, the better. And I've kind of used Mother Nature to build a fortress around my house, meaning it's a collection of vines and plants. Along the fence, I have some stuff for stuff to keep birds off of the fence. But the birds I get here are small birds, so it doesn't, on monuments and things, they put this stuff. In fact, I worked for the guy used to know Johnny Cash. I'm not going to mention his name, but he was the guy who, I think, invented this stuff that they put on areas to deter pigeons and certain birds from getting on top of statues or buildings, monument areas, right? So you don't have all that bird dung all over the place. Well, I've got a bunch of that stuff on my fence, so it's kind of almost functions as a barbed wire. But my justification is it's for birds, so it's not like it's totally legal. You could buy it on Amazon.com. And then to top that on, I've used Mother Nature. There's something called stinging nettle, which is a very invasive plant. And I bought some seeds like about 2 years ago, a year or two ago. And that's outrageous. But if you just brush up against that, it's like they call it stinging nettle. It's like being stung by a bee. And you'll even get a rash and stuff, but it like stings. And it's invasively growing along underneath these vines and underneath those spikes coming up from the fence and stuff. So as this whole thing comes in, I've got this tunnel of growth, to deter people. And then, of course, I've got, all sorts of motion detectors, alarms, and everything else to let me know, So that's that. But why are they doing this to us is the question. So let's look at a couple possible scenarios. One is, and I touched on this briefly yesterday, is these people are functionally illiterate. Now, we know that term functional illiterate because that's right out of the government. I think it was the education department or some study by some government bureaucratic agency posted on a website, government.gov website. A couple of weeks ago, we went to it here on the show live and saw it. So they coined the word functional illiteracy. And that's people not just coming out of high school, but actually people coming out of college are what they call functionally illiterate, meaning they have very poor, below average reading, writing, and like math skills. So, and you're wondering why, things aren't being done properly. You've got floods, bad forest management, and all this other kind of stuff. Right? Because basically, the last several generations that have come out of this indoctrination system that they call the education system, right? The nanny state. They're functionally illiterate. I don't even trust a lot of people in the professions anymore. I was telling somebody that yesterday. I was saying, you have to be very careful if you have a problem, whether it's a health problem or a problem with something in your house or apartment, you have to be very careful. It's not a matter of just like some people worry about getting some shyster contractor who's going to rip you off. I mean, that goes without saying. Unfortunately, there's a big chunk of people out there that are just, thieves. Like I said, there's millions of people have gotten away with murder because there are so many cold cases you can't imagine. They don't tell the people about that. You got 20,000 homicides a year. Well, just tally up the years you've been alive, right? And think about it. And the majority of them go unsolved. So there's murderers everywhere, murderers everywhere who've gotten away with murder. And then you see what's going on. Like people are just shoplifting in like places like California where they've taken away the idea. Well, just go in the store, grab whatever you want to. If it's less than a certain amount of money, less than, $800 or something ridiculous like that. I barely spend $800 on personalized items over the course of the year. You know, these people are going in these stores and they're just grabbing whatever they want. No, it's crazy. So we have to accept you've got that element of society, but I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about the murderers, thieves, thugs. We don't talk about the gang problem in this country. You know, the gangs, cold-blooded murderers, they are too. So, I mean, that's not even any of that stuff. So you got all that in the background. But in the foreground, and then there's, like I say, the shyster contractors who say they're going to do something, fix something, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. I know. I've been a victim of that on a couple of occasions. My chair's already gone down again. I think we're getting to the very end of this chair, but I don't know what to do because I can't afford to buy another one. Decent chair like this, computer chair, give you some kind of, I sit here for 2 hours doing this show. So it's not like I'm going to sit on I'm just like a little tiny chair. And my back is hurting me right now. Which I don't know if that's part of this problem that I'm being plagued with or not. Or if it's just the chair. So yeah, one time some guy came and I was having him, this is in another building. I was installing an upstairs shower and I did all basic work because I have basic construction skills, basically you're a Renaissance man type of guy, jack of many trades, master of many, unlike the other way it's been presented to people. So yeah, I know what to do, but there's certain things I have limitations because I haven't trained in something or haven't done it enough to become an expert at it. The more you do a thing, the better you become at it. So I hired a contractor guy to come in and because I had prepared the spot, drilled the hole, had the drain, purchased this shower. It was just a stand-up, shower type thing. It had to be basically just kind of put together, sealed and, the drain installed. And, it was very, relatively fairly easy. Well, anyway, this comes and I was paying this guy by the hour. All right. And he was there like a couple of days and it's like he was there. He didn't know what the hell he was doing. So I finally looked at him. I said, hey, man, this isn't working out. And like, almost as if he was relieved, he like just grabbed his tools and he like walked out. The guy was somehow pretending like he didn't want to admit that he didn't know what the hell he was doing, but somehow he took it and he took my money. Because I'd given him cash. So you got those kind of shysters out there. Now something that wasn't much money, maybe he ripped me off for I was probably only giving him $10 an hour. This is years ago. $10 an hour would be good, because I was I was helping. So it was like, but the thing should, and I would have given him like a $100 bonus or something when the thing was finished or whatever. But there's people that get ripped off, for tens of thousands of dollars. You ever watch that show, Homes on Homes? Really big contractors that screw people over. But no, I'm talking about people that don't know what they're talking about, right? That are like, that you depend on for things, for medical, for a surgery or for dental work. Like I said, I've had teeth problems and Now I've got this stomach problem or something. I don't know what's going on, man. I'm fucking dying. But you got to get the right person, because there's a lot of people out there, and some of them have degrees, or they come in from a foreign country with a degree, and you don't know if that's a real degree or not. But the people letting them in buy it. They say, "Oh, okay, well, you got your degree," right? People with falsified documents or whatever. I can remember I was going to some doctor. I'm not going to say what country he was from. This is years ago too. And I was going to him a couple of times, and yeah, he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. And so I eventually had to just stop going there. But at the time I was paying, I was self-employed, and I had a $400 deductible on. I was going to the doctor. I lost like about $1,200 going to that quack. And imagine how many people's lives and stuff that he messed up. And then when I was in the hospital about a year and a half or two ago, and I was having some serious problems, there was like this roving doctor and a couple of doctors, and they came into my room and they said, "We're going to take your gallbladder out." I was there just to have some like kidney stones dealt with or something like that, right? And fortunately, this doctor who I ended up doing some other work who worked with on me, I found this guy from Johns Hopkins. This wasn't at Johns Hopkins Hospital, but he had interned at Johns Hopkins, gone through, brilliant guy. He said, "There's nothing wrong with your gallbladder." I mean, these were just opportunistic doctors in this hospital who are actually like, somehow certified, or whoever they get attached to a particular hospital or whatever. They were ready to wheel me in and take my gallbladder out. So you have to watch yourself, it's not just, and it's like the guys who I've been telling you about, those regular viewers of my show. They've got contractors who are trying to replace the sewer systems, because that's this infrastructure thing. This country's falling apart infrastructure-wise, right? But these contractors, they've got all the nice trucks and the logos and all that kind of stuff, all the equipment, all the heavy equipment, everything, right? And the outfits on and the vests and all this stuff. But they're digging the same hole 3 times, patching it up, and then reopening up the hole, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. So we have a lot of people that are functionally illiterate in this country. And of course, like I said before, what about the third world, what we call developing nations? And I was jokingly referring to what the hell's the second world and what's the fourth world? But yeah, in all seriousness. And so, and that's the majority of people on the planet. There's close to 8 billion people on the earth right now. And most of them aren't so-called, Western nation or first world, whatever it is, whoever came up with that whole terminology. Weird. So it doesn't matter who the individual is or what the group is. Whether they're politicians, whether they're medical people, whether they're contractors for property repairs, you have to choose those people very well, because if it's mission critical, life or death situation, do you really want someone who's functionally illiterate doing that work? whether it's physically on your body, literally going under the knife, or being prescribed some sort of pill or potion, or rewiring your house, digging up your sewers, doing whatever, And so why are they doing this to us, changing this thing? And I started this talking about where Ruben had brought up this idea of 2 weeks to flatten the curve, which we've all kind of forgotten about. Let's face it, right? It was over a year ago. And then he extended it to 30 days to flatten this so-called curve. All right. Well, that flattened. Let me get rid of this title card for right now. Okay. It's confusing to people. So this so-called, to flatten, this curve, which is, kind of an odd thing. If it's a curve, you flatten it. Well, anyway, it's already, by now, it's like dipped. And, as Ruben said, well, we'll go over, then the summer. And then then the big deal was, well, once there's a vaccination, whatever, the thing. I don't know if I should have said that word, but once we have that, then everybody will be fine. And this is just what we were told. You only go what you're told by these officials and people and professionals, so-called professionals. Well, we apparently flattened the curve. We not only flattened it, but we basically, it sunk down. We pretty much. And like I said, as a friend of mine just said, and I quoted him earlier in the beginning of the show, more than half the people have already gotten the thing, in the arm. And the other half have had the thing. So they have an immunity. And then we were also told on TV at press conferences by these people that we believe are professionals that that once that immunity is that's gold. That's the gold standard. That's even better than the thing than here, because now they're saying if you got this, you have to wear this still indefinitely. You can't really see the guy with the mask on back here. I don't know if I can get to it. Some power here. Let's see if I can turn this on. Backlighting. That's a cigarette lighter. Let's see. See, there's some light back there now. Let's see if I can move out of the way. Eyes without a face. You see the guy with the sunglasses, and he's wearing the thing that says everything you know is wrong next to the hula girl. And, of course, the game over hat. And you can kind of see a little bit of great solar stuff there at the same time. Anyway, no need to waste that. And yeah, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Summer clothes. It's the middle of the summer. It's the dog days of summer till August 14th. So we're still in the, we're in the middle of it all. So I'm not going to sit here and wear a Beau Brummel suit. So that's the big question, that comes to mind. It's like, and there's been other things, because I cut the cord to TV. So, I just happen to watch these guys. Like, occasionally I'll watch Dave Rubin's show, and I'll watch some other, other people who are like on top of this stuff, right? And who have the clips. right? So they show what these people have said, and then they play back. Then they show what they said like a month or a year ago, and then they play back what they've just said, 2 days ago. And it would be funny under any other normal circumstance, these people would be looked at as clowns. In fact, that was one of the things I was going to do. I was going to look for before I came down, but I forgot. And maybe it'll be tomorrow's show, but I won't guarantee it. I was gonna just look for some clown art that I had, and I was gonna call this whole thing this clown show. And that, and these people who are afraid of clowns, have a reason to be afraid of clowns, because it's like a science fiction movie or a science fiction book I read once. I don't think they made it into a movie. They may or may not have. But it was an idea that dealt with time, and the gist of it was, this is a spoiler alert. It might have been a TV series that kind of was loosely based on it. But the idea is like, why were people afraid of the devil in the sense of this horned, classic horned, red, weird creature? Because remember, those of you who are into the Bible in the sense of, scripture, whether it's, Old Testament, New Testament, whatever your beliefs and, whatever religious sect you happen to be a part of. There's not really pictures in there. And though people have made, pictures of these things, originally these texts, the ancient texts that have survived that we call the Bible, all right, even the various versions of them, technically are just words with sometimes ornate fonts. And the idea of this sci-fi story was, why did people have this fear of this innate fear of this horned, red, tall, beast, right, that we kind of picture the devil to be, okay. And so what they had said was that it was an interesting concept in time. It was this idea of circular time, because I say time isn't, because personally I don't believe time is linear to begin with, and I did a show on that. You should watch that show. That's a very interesting show. This wheezing thing. So they said what happened was these aliens came down to Earth and were promising all these things, and they had this front person that just looked almost like human and all that. But then once the main alien or whatever, had shown itself, it basically looked like the devil. And the whole idea was that their purpose here was nefarious. It was almost like that Twilight Zone concept of that Twilight Zone episode, To Serve Man. But, this is a different thing. And so the idea was that the reason we feared this red horned, tall, devilish creature was not from the past. It was because it was from the future, because it represented at the end of civilization, and that had kind of circled back so much that it was in our genetic history, but it was from the future. Pretty freaky idea, concept of time. That, in other words, something from the future so horrific could actually be something that would be inside of us from the past. But what I'm getting at is that these, they're tormenting 8 billion people on the planet. They're functionally illiterate. Most of the not the people on the planet. Some people on the planet are functionally illiterate because they've gone through an education system that's done that to them, the nanny state, okay? That has spent more time worrying about indoctrinating them and revising history and things like that than they have in educating them. Okay, that's a different story. People in the so-called third world or developing nations, it's not their fault that they don't have certain, skill sets from an educational standpoint, simply because they live in poverty and they've been oppressed their entire lives. So you can't expect someone, all right, which is the majority of people on the planet, you can't, it's not their fault, all right? And you wouldn't want to you don't call them functionally illiterate. They just are what they are. They're living where they are, doing the best they can. In fact, in many cases, I would rather have somebody from like a so-called third world country assist me in some kind of thing than I would some functionally illiterate from Western civilization. Because the functionally illiterate that are running what was once Western civilization in the former United States are scary. Because it's like they drank the Kool-Aid. They actually believe, this revisionist history, and they believe these things they're doing, and they seem to have some kind of cognitive dissonance or something that they can't, that they're, this, attention span of a goldfish is, no memory whatsoever. So what is going on and why are they doing this to us is the question. And yes, it's simply beyond belief. It literally is. It's like a horror show. So, I don't know. So, what the heck are these people, are they being led by, was David Icke right all along? And, were they being led by some kind of space alien type of thing? Have we already been, and is that why there was like this disclosure to get us ready for that? To find out that these, I mean, this stuff sounds crazy, and it really does. It sounds crazy. And it sounds like it's right out of a B horror movie from the 50s, okay? Or the early 60s. Something you'd see at a drive-in, right? However, as crazy as that sounds, nonetheless, this is everyday life. These people are marching around, and these talking heads on the media just keep repeating, the most absurd, ridiculous, insane things. Things shocking beyond belief. And they've got people in this state of like total terror, it's just total horror. So, what people don't know what to do. They're scared shitless, basically. Two weeks to flatten the curve. We'll have to take another 30 days to flatten the curve. It'll be over by the summer. Once we get a thing, then it'll be okay. We go back to normal. Right? And now that basically the entire population of the United States, according to government statistics, have either been, have had that or caught it and have an immunity, which they told us was the same. And they're saying despite that, where the society is,
Your papers, please.
you're going to have to like do this again even if you have this. So, they're driving people mad. People are going crazy. I don't know what people with kids are going to do. I don't have any kids, so I can't speak to that. But my God, these kids are insane. Have gone insane. They must have gone insane. And, as far as everyone else, they're just terrorized, right? They're terrorizing people. They're tormenting people. Every time they come out, every time someone comes out of the, onto the dais at the, White House press conference or, whatever, on one of these cable news channels or whatever, which have taken over YouTube. So they're on YouTube too. It's, and then that's where most people are, because people have cut the cord. So they only watch these little clips of them, and so and they just keep accepting it. But meanwhile, why are we being lied to? What's the truth? See, we're accepting. It's like I told you, it's like the contractor that comes to your house and says, yeah, I'll fix your leaky roof. And then you give him, a guy gets a check for $12,000 to put on a new roof. Man, roofs are expensive. That's why I haven't gotten mine fixed. My roof still leaks. I'm in quite a quandary, personally, because I have a garden and I really want it to rain. I'd love to see one of those all day rains. Maybe it'll happen this weekend. Because, man, there's nothing like the natural rain. I water my garden, with the hose and stuff. And I've grown, and I've got a lot of stuff growing, and I've got a good yield this year. But, when you have one of those all day rains, man, it's like the next day the sun comes out or something like that. And your garden is everything is just way bigger, right? You'll end up with giant zucchinis. Your tomatoes are, doubled in size. I mean, it's crazy what a good rain like that is. So I look forward to that in one respect. Plus, I like the sound of the rain. Always have. It's nice to sleep with the window open and rain, right? Relaxing. But I got a leaky roof. So when I get that, so my fear is that, if I get an all day rain like that, it's like I'm going to be, putting down old rags and shirts and different containers to catch the dripping rain through the roof. And so I bring that up because, you get a contractor and you can't trust them. It's like that doctor that tried to say, yeah, we're going to take your gallbladder out. And fortunately, another doctor stepped in and said, there's nothing wrong with your gallbladder. Of course, now my stomach's bothering me, so I don't know. Maybe I do need to have it taken out. Maybe I need my old, maybe I need to be like that 150s sci-fi movie. I just need to be a head on a table, connected to some tubes. I could be an upper torso and still do this show. You wouldn't know the better. I mean, it's no laughing matter. Some people are that way, and I feel sorry for them. But yeah, why are they doing this to us? What's with, I mean, are they really that sick, demented? Narcissistic, sociopaths, psychopaths. I mean, we know it's an organized crime syndicate that's running the, running all of the corporatocracies that used to be nations, like the former United States, is now a corporatocracy. I mean, big tech, big pharma, military contractors, central banking. You know, I heard from one of the guys I heard yesterday, you know, some people are looking that this might be a cover for, you know, for what's happening with the central banking system. A diversionary tactic because we're on the verge of financial collapse. I've talked about in previous shows where I've seen billionaires, recognizable billionaires, people who've appeared on the various Bloomberg, CNBC, you know, the financial news networks, who are all talking about a depression, you know, that's coming down the pike within the next 3 to 6 months, you know, somewhere in that time frame, that we're on the verge of financial collapse. And part of the Great Reset is for that whole thing, how the house of cards to fall, so that they can reset it. Because you don't reset something that's working, you see. So the system has to collapse, and then it needs to be reset. And then they could put in and do whatever the heck they want to, their system. You know, they're talking about the Fed, you know, having some kind of crypto coin that'll basically make Bitcoin obsolete. And that's why a lot of people with Bitcoin are cashing in and buying real estate. Same with people in the stock market. They're selling stocks. People who've made millions over the past several years. Because the stock market's gone so high, it's ridiculous. Right? And the same with Bitcoin. It's been up and down, but I mean, it's still high enough that if you bought Bitcoin cheap, and you could have bought Bitcoin cheap, that you became what they call a Bitcoin millionaire. So there's a lot of Bitcoin millionaires out there, and there's a lot of stock millionaires, people who just were probably trading from their home computers. And so what's going on with that right now is that the reason there's this real estate boom is because people are trying to take this funny money, because that's what Bitcoin is, and because what is it? It's this solving an equation, it's an algorithm, it's like suddenly you win, So they're taking this, ethereal thing. That's what one of them's called, like Ethereum, I think, even. And they're buying hard goods with it, and those hard goods are property. So there's people going on Craigslist and Zillow and all these other places, real estate online sites, and they're buying houses sight unseen. I saw one group of people, but I've seen many people talking about this and different anecdotal things, but I've seen some people like, the people they're buying houses and they're not even asking for like inspections and stuff. They're just buying it with cash. People are buying land like crazy because they want to turn this nothingness that has a value in the cloud, so to speak, into something that's solid. And so that's one, why are they doing this to us? That's one possible scenario, is that this is a cover for the financial collapse, because they don't want to focus on what I'm telling you now, which is probably why there's only one person watching this and most of the time 0 viewers. I think yesterday's show only had 5 viewers. Could you imagine that? Have you ever seen anybody in YouTube get 5 viewers? It doesn't make sense. I mean, the content on this show, these shows aren't the greatest. Maybe today you might think today's show isn't the greatest. But the idea is the amount of content and information that's put out, and the show is basically presented in a semi-professional way. And I certainly got more things going on here,
This is a nightmare. Must be a nightmare.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
That the average, YouTuber doesn't have. And the only people that even have stuff that even comes close to that are people that have like these produced shows where you can see they've got like 3 or 4 guys on the side, doing stuff. And they're getting like 1 million views or hundreds of thousands of views or at least 50,000 views. So I don't know why, But the information I give you is I'm giving most of the time in most of my shows is firsthand experience. Something I've seen firsthand, know about firsthand. So yeah, one of the possibilities is that what's going on now, the reason they're lying to us, tormenting us, and this whole shocking beyond belief, and they're just continuing this fear-mongering, is to just, draw attention away from this collapse that's about to unfold, financial collapse. And then if you watch yesterday's show, then there's the whole idea of drawing attention away. There may be another reason why nobody watches this show, because I cover it often, is the idea that we're in that 12,000 year cycle when that near extinction event comes. Like the 6 and 12,000 year cycle. And that we have evidence through archaeological record that this has occurred 12,000 years ago, 24,000 years ago, 36,000 years ago, 48,000 years ago, 72,000 years ago. This is a recurring thing. The sun novas, not supernova in the destruction of the star, it's a nova. The star remains, but it kicks out its outer shell and it raises havoc on the planet. Like I said, I've done several shows that get into more detail on that. I'm not going to go through that whole thing again. So another reason why are they doing this to us could be that they don't want you to know this. That any day now, this could happen. We are at that time. All right? Because this is also a 6,000 year. There's a halfway point between there where things occur. And the 6,000 years ago is we refer to as like the Noah event, or basically this global flood that seems almost every culture has some kind of flood story. Right? So they could be keeping that from us. Now, people don't want to believe in any of that stuff. And when you mention like the Noah story or the flood stories, oh, that's biblical. And we live in this, science where scientism has taken the place of any sort of, thinking, metaphysical thinking, right? Though, the funny thing about that is, excuse me. The funny thing about that is that there are more writings, right, and accounts and text and stone tablets and scrolls, historical documents that deal with the metaphysical than deal with scientism. In fact, and when I say scientism, I mean science. Well, you think science, but it's not, it's scientism now. These people are basically, it's like a cult, right? It's a belief system. It's not science, what I was taught in school. Science was something where someone came up with a theory, or, it involved an experiment and then reproducing that experiment under the same conditions in a different laboratory or a different part of the world. And then it was, the goal was to prove that this thing was real. Okay. It wasn't hooey. But we don't have that today. You know, we have like UN, IPCC, you know, and these people get caught lies and they found emails saying they were lying and, you know, and all this crazy stuff. And the news media is just sensational. They're just trying to sell used cars and pharmaceuticals. And then after that, the law, like I always say, then the lawyers come on and put the commercials and saying, if you use this drug, you know, you deserve to get compensated. So it's all a big game for them. It's a money game. The corporatocracy, that's what we live under. Big tech, big pharma, you know, the military contractors. Military contractors don't care about people. You know, these endless wars only exist because they make money on the weaponry, selling weapons. They sell the weapons to both sides. You know, that's just how it is. It's not fantasy. It's reality. But the idea is this so-called science, what I call scientism, is really only a couple centuries old. But there's way more information dealing with metaphysical, you know, documentation from civilizations that date back at least 12,000 years around the last time this thing happened, this near extinction event. So that's another thing that's just kept out of the public consciousness. This idea that, you know, there may be more truth to what people just, you know, push aside as metaphysical, right? Instead of dealing with the fact that, well, there seems to be more evidence of the metaphysical than there is of the so-called scientism that's being shoved down our throats. And those people who study, you know, like particle physics and look into the, the very minute as opposed to the macro universe, you know, those two things clash. And they find out that the things happening at this, you know, tiny level, you know, smaller than molecular, you know, atomic level, that the so-called laws of physics, you know, don't seem to apply the same way as they would apply to something in astrophysics, say, for example, or in the greater universe. In fact, things at that smaller level seem to be more in line with the metaphysical. It's interesting. So, you know, there could be another reason they're doing this is to just keep people from, you know, knowing about these other things. You know, remember, if you constantly scare people and keep people in a state of terror, because that's what people are right now. People are in a total state of fear. There's some people you can't talk to. I mean, you've seen the pictures. I hope you have. Yeah, there's people walking in grocery stores encased in like some kind of plastic thing they've created. Or they've got like a hula hoop around them that says, you know, don't come, you know, protecting them from their, you know, their safe space. Paying no attention to the fact that, you know, I used to always talk about this in the early days. The idea of social distancing, you don't hear that anymore, right? Because they realize that. I don't know if it was from my show because nobody watches my show, but, you know, they took those little game pieces off the floors of most of the supermarkets. You don't see them anymore. Because the whole concept of the absurdity of that was that, all right, if I step on this game piece, you know, in other words, they had these dots on the floor that were 6 feet apart. Well, then the person who was on the other dot 6 feet away, but it was the same dot. So we may at one point been 6 feet apart from each other, but then I walked and then I was in there, the space, the same space that they shared. So in other words, social distancing meant nothing. And unless you had replaced some kind of system, see, if this was a real, like if they really were into this thing, and this would have been done like a year ago, the real mandates would have been that public places and buildings would have had to, and there would have been research, and there's certainly companies that make these filters, right? That they would have had people make filters for their HVAC systems so that they would micron, that they could capture, these particles measured in microns, so that there would be this, and they would have to increase the circulation of the system itself. In other words, how much air gets pushed through the HVAC system would have to be increased. In other words, to provide, a cleaner air, safer air, and that would capture these particles. And years ago, I lived and worked in a building that I was suspect of the duct system in the air conditioning. And I had found, and I'm talking 20 years ago, I had found when I was at one of the box stores I was looking at, as I was looking at filters to put into my HVAC system, and I had found that they actually had back then even, and it was like Lysol brand or something, one of those brands that actually is involved in killing 99.9% of bacteria and viruses type of thing, that they had filters that you could put into your HVAC system. And since I didn't know, I had come into this building not knowing, what was inside of that, and I wasn't about to be able to scrub, have these ductwork completely scrubbed out, though I did inspect as many parts of as I can, and it seemed to be somewhat clean, So I purchased those things, and I don't think they cost more than $1 more than just the standard filter that people put on their on these HVAC systems. It's basically, you could, even in your home, people have filters who have forced air systems. So this is why I say, there's all these things, the questions of things they never did or things they did that were absurd. So to me, it would seem that all the supermarkets or these box stores or places where people gathered, even the bars or restaurants, they should have just been mandated, through OSHA, these existing, bureaucracies that we've set up that are supposedly there for safety, right? Occupational safety of buildings and whatnot. They should have just mandated that they install these, better filtration systems in the air that would capture any of these particles. And then the idea of, like I say, social distancing also would have been, useless because, well, number one, if you were circulating the air enough to get rid of those particles, that it would be very unlikely that, the air would be fresher and cleaner. And two, like I say, when you move from one game piece as they had set up in the past, I don't know if some other places have, but I noticed they disappeared from my supermarket, that you're just going into that other person's airspace anyway. So the whole concept of social distancing is meaningless. And of course we know that, if you go in with a bandana on, which I do, that's a lot different than one of these N95 masks or something. Because I have one of those. I had a box of them. I only have one left now because I figured this thing be over by now. And I wore one. I had a doctor's appointment about a month ago, and I wore one because I'm going to a doctor's office. And I literally, with the right mask on, you can't breathe. That's, you put it on right, you literally can't breathe. I mean, the amount of air that's coming in and the amount of air that's being exhaled is just, it's, it's nothing. I mean, it really, that in that case, that mask really does work. But the problem is you're not only preventing stuff from coming in, you're preventing the bad bacteria and virus from inside your lungs or whatever from being exhaled, which is the natural process of, and so that's staying there in that mask, and you're rebreathing basically bad germs and bad air. So, and then, but you were allowed to wear a cloth mask with, you could breathe freely with, which basically was doing nothing. So I don't know why they are doing this to us, why they keep changing the story. I don't understand. Is it, are they trying to prevent us from, diverting our attention away from the Great Reset in the sense that there's going to be a financial collapse? Are they diverting us away from some other sort of thing? Right? What is it? Why are they tormenting people? Why do they keep changing the story? And, what is it? What, I know the media wants to sell ads. I understand that, that's clear. But there comes a time where you have some kind of ethics, and morals. I was in the advertising business. I was a creative director of an advertising agency, and I was also a general manager of a radio station, and I was involved in publications. I was a publisher and an editor. So I was like, I basically was, and I, I was involved in media, so film and television media, the entertainment industry. So I pretty much have a background, directly in all, in all of this, all of these things. And I understand the motivations, which basically in all those things is a profit motive. Media's purpose, its goal, it's just like any corporation, their goal is to make a profit, right? And in the case of media, it's to sell more commercials. You get higher ratings and you get a higher rate for those commercials. The higher your ratings, the higher the price of the spot goes, commercial. But there's still wherever I was involved in, we used to get some strange ads from people sometimes. In print, I wouldn't print ads that were, questionable, suspect. That's, we would turn those ads down. And the same with radio commercials. Things that seem to be scams or didn't fit the demographics, might have been offensive to the listeners, our demographic, the listeners, viewers, etc. I mean, that's why they have ratings on movies and things like that. But today, the media doesn't seem to have any sense of morals or ethics or, discrimination against things that are messing with people's minds, tormenting people, deceiving them, and that are bold-faced lies. And that's true. It's just like there's no, the stuff they say is just so over the top. It's like, it's unbelievable. It's shocking beyond belief, like the title card here from today's show. And so why are they doing this? I mean, it's one thing to want to sell commercials and have sensationalism. All right? There were always those stations. You know, that's what cable TV kind of was. Cable TV was the sensationalized version, and then network TV was supposedly the more trusted, right? But, you know, that's not the case now. You know, it's like 5, 6 global corporations own all of the media stations. You know, so you have companies like Viacom and, you know what I mean? In other words, Paramount owns CBS. You know, I mean, they're all interconnected. So, you know, one network station owns, you know, 6 or 7 cable stations and, you know, other things. You know, this was all this, you know, a lot of people don't even understand that. They think they're like different stations. It's like, no. You're watching some cable channel that's actually owned by the same person or same company that owns this network news station. So it's a very incestuous thing. And they're all pushing the same this same message. And this message changes from, if not week to week, from every several weeks or every couple months over the past year and a half. And it's insane. And it's driving people insane. And who knows what it's doing to the minds of children. You know? Nothing good. So, I don't know. So have we reached a point where this organized crime syndicate, the Davos set, you know, the World Economic Forum people, and this Great Reset are just so amoral or whatever that they've just decided that, you know, they're going to mess with the 8 billion people on the planet? Is it about hiding and deceiving us that there's going to be a financial collapse and that's what the Great Reset needs in order to be successful? Is it because they want to hide the fact that this is the 12,000-year cycle and that we're basically at any day now, the sun is going to nova and life as we know it, there'll be a near extinction event, meaning most people in the U.S. aren't going to survive. That's for sure. You know, at best it would be people at the equatorial regions and only in certain areas. And that's assuming that the earth doesn't like kind of do a spin, you know, so that there's a new equator. You know, there's different schools of thought on that. So are they doing that? Is it about like, you know, this goofy, you know, this UFO disclosure that's come out? Are they trying to like play some kind of game with us with that? Is that just another way to scare people or keep people on edge? Or is this disclosure part of the idea that this whole scaring people is a diversion away from the fact that, you know, the aliens are among us, you know? I mean, you could just go down the list of all kinds of the most far-fetched things you can imagine, because here's why. Because what they're doing doesn't have sense. There's no logic to it. They've been caught lying to us for 1.5 years straight. Actually, 2 years, really. Like I said, you know, Event 201 was all about this thing, and that occurred in the fall of 2019. And you don't put an event like that together logistically to get people hotel, you know, accommodations, prepare their PowerPoint presentations, the whole thing. It takes, you know, that would have been prepared the previous spring, summer. So it's been about 2 years. And Event 201 was exactly about this, and it was all the same players were present at it. So, you know, we're dealing with something that's like 2 years in the making at least. Not to mention that a guy that I don't even want to mention, one of the most despicable people on the planet, whose face is all over the news every frickin' day, had said back in 2015, 2016 that this was going to happen. So he was talking about it, 3 years prior. Shocking beyond belief, So why are they doing this to us? What is it? Is it about money? Is it about power? Is it about diversion? Is it a deception? Is it about culling the herd? Or worse, is it just to keep people so on edge that this thing that happened in the past year and a half was only a dry run, and they're actually going to, release something this fall or whatever, next winter, that will basically, take out half the people on the planet or more, most of them. And that this term dog whistle that the media likes to use in another context is all this stuff about, is this a dog whistle to their own people to warn them because they've got the, these so-called shelters they think they're going to hide out in. Is this just a message to them to it's coming, it's happening, get ready, be prepared. And they're just using the, mainstream media machine to broadcast to a very small audience of just a couple thousand people. Remember, it's only a couple thousand people that are ruling over 8 billion people on the planet. That in and upon itself is an absurd statement. But it's true. So when you see the red carpet event of the World Economic Forum, the Davos thing that they hold every year, where they came up with the Great Reset, it's on their website. And you see that being covered on Bloomberg, CNBC, Fox Business, and any other business news station. Then, and there's it's a couple of thousand people. And they basically are laying out the structure, the plan, for what's going to occur in the coming year and years for 8 billion people on the planet. In other words, how we live, what's going to happen, how, financial systems, government structures, wars, conflicts, you name it, right? The so-called self-appointed ruling elite of the planet, the rulers of the planet. And so that's it. Or is it that simple? Why are they doing it to us? Just because they're sickos. Because they're narcissistic psychopaths, narcissistic sociopaths. They're sickos. And they're just sick with power. They're drunk on power and greed, and they get off on it. It's like this concept of loosh. Look that up. People, as if these people who just get energy from the suffering and the fear and horror, right? That feeds them. Sounds crazy, right? But in metaphysical, but there's been a lot of documentation about that from back in, just about a couple thousand years ago or so. So, any way you look at it, it's shocking beyond belief. It's sick. It's demented. They're lying constantly to us because they constantly change the story. They tell us a thing. People adapt. They do the right thing, so to speak. And then they're told, oh, that's not enough. Now you're going to have to do this. Right? They hold back numbers. They play games. They use percentages when percentages work to their advantage. And they use raw numbers when raw numbers work to their advantage. Figures lie and liars figure. It's a sick, sick, sick game they're playing with 8 billion people on the planet. And here in the U.S., it makes no sense whatsoever. And like in the UK last year, for some reason, I haven't seen updated figures, so it's been a while. So I'm not going to say that this is, the gospel, truth. But at one point, there were no flu deaths at all in Great Britain. But there were, instead, there were deaths by the thing that you're not supposed to talk about. But there were 0 flu deaths. So the question is, what's going on? Where's those numbers? Why isn't the accounting, there? Aren't we supposed to isn't the media supposed to hold our politicians and bureaucrats accountable? Isn't that part of their job, the fourth estate, as they call it? But they don't do it. They just seem to be all part of this big corporatocracy, right? They're all on the same, it's like they're all reading from the same playbook. And meanwhile, they're terrorizing 8 billion people. And we don't know what to believe. The average person just doesn't know what to believe anymore. You don't know what to believe because they tell you to do this and you do it. And then next month they tell you, oh, well, don't do that, but now you're going to have to do this. Or, yeah, well, we're glad you did that, but now you're still going to have to go back and do this other thing, even though you did that. We told you that if you did that, you wouldn't have to do this. But guess what? That thing isn't, didn't work out right. But meanwhile, Big Pharma made hundreds of billions of dollars on it, and Big Tech's making a fortune on it, and the media's making a fortune on it. Right? And who knows what the military-industrial complex is up to at the same time. And then the Federal Reserve. Like what this great reset with the central banks is really all about. Because, the so-called rulers of the planet, the self-appointed rulers of this planet, it's all about money. I mean, these people have no idea. There used to be some show in the 80s, 70s or 80s called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. And, these people used to sit on on their sofas and they'd watch this stuff and ooh and ah. Ooh, look how so-and-so lives, right? Then MTV Cribs, right? And then there's other shows, like by some magazines. I think there's one by another magazine now. I don't know if it's Architectural Digest or one of those. They have one. They go into rich and famous people's. Here's their house, right? And people sit by and, ooh, wow, I'd love to live like that. That's great. Well, the thing is, these people who live like that, They don't care about you. And they're the people who are pushing all these narratives. And they've got their private jets, and they've got their yacht, and they've got these multiple houses, and they've got these resort areas, and they've got their offshore bank accounts where they don't pay taxes and they hide their money. Right? And they don't abide by any of these edicts that they make the common man, do. They don't have to jump through any of those hoops. Right? And you could be assured that they're not going to be dealing with this.
Your papers, please.
Because they fly into an airport in a private jet in a separate part. And they just get out and hop into their limousine or tricked out SUV, and go to their 5-star hotel where they've got, permanently reserved suite. Nobody sees them. They go to restaurants that only they and people like them could go to. Resorts that no one else can afford. Right? And they must be laughing. They must be laughing at this. That's the other thing. They're so sick, they're just laughing at us. So, I don't know, it's like, it's just beyond belief what's going on. It doesn't add up, is what I'm saying. It doesn't add up. And if someone's out there who tries to say, well, and tries to rationalize a specific element of this whole insanity, to them I say, wake the hell up, man. Because you have to just look at it in its entirety. You got to look at the big picture. You got to look at what's happened over the past 2 years. And just lie after lie and things that have changed constantly. The hypocrisy, all right? And then the numbers, the raw, real numbers that don't add up. The 99% number of people that haven't died. Right? Which might be the strongest argument that makes this thing seem so absurd to begin with. How could you be that terrorized, right? So like I say, I don't have the answers. I don't know. I'm just posing these questions. I know it's shocking beyond belief. That's a fact. I know that there have been lies. I know that things have seemed to change every 2 weeks, 2 months, and 2 years. But why are they doing this? What's their end game? Is there an end game? Are they just psychopaths? Are they just torturing people, tormenting us? Is this a dry run for a plan to just depopulate? Who knows? Or is David Icke right? And the aliens are, in charge. And that's why they've been disclosing things. And that picture of that woman in the card on the screen, my title card from YouTube title card, isn't so far from reality. I mean, things are so absurd right now that is as believable as the stuff that's coming out of the news media or the memes, social media, right? Or the newspapers or whatever. You know, when I say media, I mean everything is media now. Because, you know, how people get media from their, you know, voice assistant, their smartphone now, news apps. But I'll tell you, it's so off the wall, it's so over the top that you don't know what to believe. And you know, anyone who's lived long enough, you know, to have seen somewhat civil society and is looking at what's going on right now is just like, is in shock or disbelief is what I guess it's a better way. It's just disbelief. It's like, I look at it and it's like, I'm in disbelief. So I just live my life and, you know, grow my food and try to have a decent life. And that's the best you can do, because to expect any truth or, you know, and to expect things to change, they've been telling us that for the past year and a half. And it just seems like it's getting worse and worse and more absurd. And, you know, I'll leave you with this other interesting thing. You know, at the WWC Apple Developers Conference, they announced a aspect that they were going to add this fall to FaceTime, which will allow people to get together on FaceTime and have like listening or viewing parties. Okay? So in other words, you have your smartphone set up, and you could have your smartphone go onto your, I guess, Apple TV app, so it's on your TV too. And so if you have Apple TV or Apple Music and your subscription to that, you could, through FaceTime, basically get together with 4 or 5 friends at different parts of the country or different parts of town, and you could watch the same movie at the same time, and you can talk and see each other's faces if you want, or chat, talk, you know, and be a part of it as if you're all together. And you could do the same, listening to the same music at the same time and talk about it and drink glasses of wine together, but you're not together. And I noticed on Amazon Prime, which I have, they have a thing now about where you can have like some kind of watch party. Okay? It says that it's right underneath the thing. So that other people have Amazon Prime, you can set up some kind of thing where you can watch that together with people at different locations. Now, I always tell people that if you really want to understand what's going on, it's like that line, follow the money, you know, or, you know, where's the money? When corporations are doing things like that and are investing hundreds of millions of dollars, at least, into these kinds of technologies, and I'm sure other companies are doing the same thing. These are 2 that I happened upon. One I happened upon because of the developers conference, and the other one I happened upon just because I just started to notice it popping up on Amazon Prime on their shows and movies. That means, and this stuff is to take effect in the fall, right, and into the holiday season. So that means if the corporations, big tech, has invested money in this technology and this is their big push, that means they're planning a lockdown this fall and this winter. Otherwise, why would you create such a ridiculous technology and put all that effort into it, the cost of it? It's pretty complicated technology if you think about it. I like the idea of it. It's neat in a sense. It'd be great, you know, for, you know, if they would have had it already, you know, so I could have a friend in California and I could sit here and the 2 of us, I could be at my bar in my kitchen and I could, you know, be sitting there having a couple of beers, listening to my playlist, and have that person listening to the exact same playlist. And we could be conversing, seeing each other, and having some drinks together. Interesting concept. And like these people that like to get together for movie night, never was my thing, but there's a lot of people like that. And the same, I guess, would be for sports, right? Because you notice now on like, particularly Amazon Prime, they carry, live games, this has been done in the gaming industry, not the professional sports industry, for years now. People have like kind of had headsets on and chatted and, participated in that. But they're moving this into the general population now, not just the gamers. Okay? All right? They're moving this into entertainment, sports, and music, things. So it seems to me that where the money is, if you follow the money is saying that they're planning lockdown. So that's scary. Think about that. I'm not bullshitting you there. That's real. That's what they're really doing. And like I said, you don't invest something and make a big stink about it as a corporation in these multi-billion-dollar corporations, right? You don't put that effort into a thing unless it's going to be a big thing and it's a major thrust and hopefully a selling point for your device or your services. And what use would it be to people if we were, if the lockdown was lifted and if we could go back to movies and back to just going over a friend's house and watching a movie, or just instead of a listening party over FaceTime, I could have 6 people over my house and we could just be listening to music and having some beers or whatever. You see? Otherwise, it serves no purpose unless they already know that there's going to be a lockdown this fall, winter. So these are interesting times. And remember, that's a Chinese curse, that thing. May you live in interesting times is not a good expression for the Chinese. That's a curse. And we do live in interesting times. Thanks for watching. We'll be dealing with this much more in depth as time goes on. Visit TonyCaravanLive.com. You can also get to that same website. It's just a web page for now. It's going to grow. Rockflux.com. And I have a community at locals.com as well. And some other places. I'm available through the podcast index, and I put links to these things on various social media, just the links. I don't participate in social media anymore, but I put links to these videos. Anyway, all the best, and I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of